The twin suns of Vera 9 painted the sky orange and silver. The air shimmered with heat as humans and aliens traded in the colony marketplace. Machines hummed, vendors shouted, and the smell of iron dust mixed with roasted herbs. It was just another busy day, or at least that's what Ethan Cole thought. Ethan was a human engineer, calm, focused, and known for fixing anything. He had come to the market with his 8-year-old daughter, Leah. She was bright, curious, and had a habit of talking to everyone. While Ethan checked the prices of oxygen filters, Leah wandered near the food stalls. He smiled, shaking his head, thinking she was chasing after sweets again. But then he heard it. A scream. "Dad! Dad! I want him to be my brother!" The entire marketplace froze. Every head turned toward the small human girl pointing at something behind a metal stall. Ethan's heart skipped. He rushed forward, pushing through the crowd. When he reached Leah, he saw her standing near a pile of broken crates. Behind them, half hidden in shadow, was a small alien child. The boy's skin was light blue, almost glowing under the sun. He looked no older than 6, thin and weak. His golden eyes were full of fear and his clothes were nothing but torn rags. Around his neck hung a heavy metal tag engraved with strange symbols. Ethan bent down, brushing the dust from it, and his face went pale. The tag read, "Property of the Guild." For a moment, the world felt silent. The Guild, the most powerful organization in the galaxy, was banned from using slaves, yet here was proof that they still did, hiding their crimes in plain sight. Leah knelt beside the alien boy, gently holding his trembling hand. "Dad, he's cold," she whispered. "Can we take him home?" Ethan's breath caught. He looked around, afraid someone had seen them. Several traders turned away, pretending not to notice. Everyone knew the ruse. "Les, if you interfered with the Guild's property, you disappeared." "Sweetheart," Ethan said softly, "he's not like us. We can't." But when he met the boy's eyes, something inside him broke. They weren't the eyes of a stranger, they were the eyes of a scared child begging for safety. Ethan sighed deeply. He looked at Leah, her small face serious, her eyes filled with tears. "Please, Dad," she said. "He doesn't have anyone." The alien boy whispered something faint, almost like help, and that one word changed everything. Without thinking, Ethan took off his jacket and wrapped it around the boy. He lifted him gently, the child's body shaking against his chest. "All right," Ethan whispered. "We'll take him home. Just for tonight." Leah smiled with relief, holding the boy's hand as they hurried away from the market, but as they turned the corner, a voice echoed behind them. "Human, wait!" Ethan didn't look back. He walked faster, weaving through the crowd. He could feel eyes on his back, guild watchers, maybe even bounty officers. He knew he had just broken a galactic law. When they finally reached their transport vehicle, Ethan locked the doors and started the engine. Leah sat beside the alien boy, covering him with a blanket. The boy's breathing was shallow, his skin glowing faintly blue. Ethan adjusted the oxygen level inside the cabin to match alien tolerance. "Hold on, little one," he murmured. "You're safe now." They drove for miles through dusty plains and under the long shadows of mining towers. At last, their small home appeared, a metal dome at the edge of the colony. Ethan parked quietly and carried the boy inside. He placed him on the repair table in his workshop. The boy looked around, frightened but calm. Leah stayed close, whispering, "It's okay. My dad can fix anything." Ethan smiled weakly at her words. He cleaned the boy's wounds, gave him water, and sat to check his pulse. It was weak but steady. He noticed strange marks on the boy's back, thin scars, like something had been connected there before. He didn't ask questions. He just said softly, "You're safe here." That night, while Leah slept on the couch beside the boy, Ethan sat in the dark thinking. He knew what he had done was dangerous. If the guild found out he had taken one of their assets, they'd come for him, but he couldn't regret it. When he saw Leah's small hand resting on the alien boy's, he felt something he hadn't in years: hope. Outside, the twin moons of Vera 9 rose over the metal hills. Inside, a human father, his daughter, and a fragile alien child slept under the same roof. And somewhere in the distance, a guild patrol ship scanned the colony for missing property. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the scream of that little girl had started something far bigger than love or kindness. It had started a war for the soul of humanity. Morning came quietly on Vera 9. The orange sunlight slipped through the cracked blinds of Ethan's home. Inside, everything was still, except for the soft sound of breathing. The alien boy, wrapped in a blanket, slept beside Leah on the couch. Ethan stood near the window, staring at the horizon where the mining towers rose like dark giants. He had not slept all night. His mind was full of worry. He knew the law. No human could keep or shelter an alien child without permission from the Galactic Council. Breaking that law meant prison, exile, or worse. But when he looked at the small boy resting peacefully beside his daughter, he couldn't regret his choice. Leah woke up first, yawning and smiling when she saw the boy. "Good morning, Nova," she whispered. Ethan turned, surprised. "Nova?" She nodded proudly. "It means new, like a new star." Ethan smiled faintly. "Nova. I like that." The name fit him. Small, bright, and full of mystery. But as he watched them play, Ethan's fear grew. He knew someone would come looking. The guild never forgot what belonged to them. He needed a plan. He walked to his workshop and turned on the scanner. It hummed quietly as he ran it over Nova's body. At first, nothing seemed strange, until the scanner beeped. A faint signal blinked on the screen. A tracker. "Damn," Ethan whispered. The guild had placed a signal device inside the boy. They could find him anywhere. Ethan's hands shook. He quickly powered down the machine and covered the monitor with a cloth. He didn't want Leah to see. If they found out Nova was here, they wouldn't just take the boy. They'd destroy everything. Later that day, Leah brought Nova a bowl of soup. He held the spoon awkwardly, as if he'd never used one before. When she laughed softly and helped him, he smiled. A small, shy smile that made Ethan's chest tighten. For a moment, their home felt warm, almost normal, but peace never lasts long on Vera 9. By evening, the sound of engines echoed in the distance. Ethan stepped outside, heart pounding. In the dark sky above, a patrol ship drifted slowly over the colony, scanning with red beams of light. He quickly turned off all power in the house and motioned Leah to stay quiet. Nova's golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Ethan whispered, "Shh, don't move." The ship's voice boomed through speakers. "Attention, citizens. Property of the guild is missing. Anyone with information must report immediately." Ethan clenched his fists. The words property made his stomach twist. He looked at Nova, sitting on the floor, hugging his knees, afraid to breathe. This was not a property. This was a child. The patrol ship hovered for a while, then moved away. The silence afterward felt heavy. Leah looked up at her father. "Dad, are they bad people?" Ethan knelt beside her and said softly, "They're people who forgot what's right." That night, when the children slept, Ethan sat alone again. He opened his datapad and searched the laws. The screen showed endless light. In ease of cold text, unauthorized adoption across species is punishable by exile. He stared at those words for a long time. He could lose everything. His home, his daughter, his freedom. But as he glanced at Nova sleeping with Leah's arm around him, he made his decision. He whispered, "They made the law to protect themselves, not the innocent." He stood up and opened his toolkit. If he couldn't hide forever, he would prepare. He began building an EMP scrambler, a small device that could jam short-range trackers. It wasn't perfect, but it was hope. Hours later, the scrambler hummed quietly, its blue light blinking. Ethan tested it. The tracker signal disappeared from his scanner. He smiled for the first time that day. "Sleep safe, son," he whispered, looking at Nova. But even as he said it, far away in the guild's central station, an officer frowned at a console. "Tracking signal lost, sir," a voice said. The officer's cold eyes narrowed. "Then we send a hunter," he replied, and somewhere in the darkness of space, a bounty ship activated its engines. Its mission, retrieve the asset, or destroy whoever took him. Back on Vera 9, Ethan had no idea what was coming. He only knew that for the first time in his life, he had something worth fighting for. He looked at Leah and Nova sleeping side by side and whispered, "If the stars have laws, then so do fathers. And mine says no child gets left behind." Outside, the night wind howled softly against the metal walls. The colony slept, unaware that a storm was coming. A storm that would test how far one human would go for love. The next few days passed quietly. At least that's what Ethan wanted to believe. He fixed broken oxygen vents for the colony during the day and came home before sunset. No one suspected anything, but every time he looked at the sky, he saw patrol lights blinking far above. The guild was still searching, inside the small metal house. Leah and Nova played with scrap parts, building tiny robots from old circuits. Leah giggled when the small bot walked a few steps before falling over. Nova smiled, his golden eyes bright, his laughter soft and gentle. For a child who had lived in fear, that smile meant everything. Ethan often paused in his work just to watch them. He couldn't remember the last time his house had felt this alive. But peace has a strange way of hiding danger. That night, while everyone slept, Ethan was woken by a strange sound, a faint hum. He thought it was a machine malfunction, but when he checked, all systems were stable. The sound came from the couch, from Nova. The boy was shivering in his sleep, glowing faintly blue. His breathing was uneven, shallow and fast. Ethan rushed over and checked his pulse. Weak. Nova, he whispered, shaking him gently. The boy didn't respond, only whispered a few broken words in his alien tongue. Then his chest began to shine brighter. Ethan grabbed his medical scanner. The reading made his hands freeze. Inside Nova's chest, where lungs should be, the screen showed metallic structures moving like living things. It wasn't natural, it wasn't alien, it was engineered. He zoomed in and saw tiny gears, biomechanical veins, and glowing filaments. They weren't made for breathing, they were made for conversion. They turned toxic air into oxygen. Ethan's mind raced. Someone built this kid, he muttered. Half living, half machine. He sat back, trying to breathe. The truth hit him like a shockwave. Nova wasn't just a child, he was a creation, a mix of human and alien design, a prototype, and the Guild must have been the ones who made him. Ethan's thoughts spun wildly. Why would anyone build a child like this? Was he an experiment? A weapon? He looked down at Nova, fragile and innocent. No weapon could smile like that. No machine could laugh like his daughter's new brother. He made a choice. He wasn't going to let anyone take Nova back, not as long as he lived. He whispered, "You're not property. You're my son now." Over the next few days, Ethan studied Nova's inner systems carefully. He found damage, small tears in the artificial lungs that caused pain when Nova breathed. Using his engineering tools, he began repairing them with gentle hands. Leah stayed close, handing him wires and lenses, whispering encouragement. "Dad's fixing you, Nova," she said softly. Nova smiled weakly and whispered, "Thank you." When Ethan heard that, clear human words, he almost dropped his tools. "Nova, you spoke," he said, eyes wide. The boy blinked, confused, then repeated, "Thank you, Dad." Ethan froze, emotions tightening his chest. He didn't correct him, he just whispered, "You're welcome, son." For a while, everything felt calm again, but late one evening as Ethan ran a diagnostic scan, something strange appeared on the monitor. Hidden deep in Nova's system was a signal transmitter. It wasn't active before, but now it flickered faintly, sending pulses into space. Ethan's heart dropped. He traced the code. It matched the Guild's technology. They were tracking him again. He quickly tried to disable it, connecting wires and isolating circuits. The transmitter resisted every command. It was built deep, part of Nova's lungs, part of his life. Removing it might kill him. Ethan sat back, sweating. He whispered, "They built you to never be free." That night, he stood outside under the cold light of the moons. The wind carried dust and static. He looked up at the stars, knowing someone out there was watching fall. Owing that signal, he clenched his fists. "They think he's their property," he muttered. "But they'll have to go through me first." Inside, Leah and Nova were asleep again. The girl's small hand rested on the boy's arm. Ethan smiled sadly. He wanted to protect that peace no matter the cost. Suddenly, the communicator on his desk beeped. A message appeared. Encrypted, old-style text from a private network. He opened it. The message read, "You have something that belongs to us. Return the prototype, or we come for you." No name, no signature. Just a guild mark glowing red. Ethan deleted the message instantly. He turned off all lights and locked the doors. His mind was clear now. The guild was coming. He checked the weapon storage. Only 2 plasma tools and a repair gun. Not much, but it would have to do. As he stared into the dark, he whispered to himself, "They built a machine to survive any world, but I'll teach him how to live in this one." Far above the planet, a silent ship adjusted its course. Engines flared blue as it descended through the clouds. The hunter had arrived, and Ethan Cole's quiet rebellion was about to become a war. The night sky over Vera 9 trembled as a streak of red light cut through the clouds. It wasn't a meteor, it was a ship. Silent, sleek, and deadly. Its black hull carried the mark of the guild. Inside the cockpit, a figure sat motionless, eyes glowing faint red, metal fingers tapping the control panel. His name was Core, half human, half machine, and all hunter. He had no family, no past, only orders. And his new order was simple: retrieve the prototype or eliminate the thief. He didn't care which. Down on the surface, Ethan Cole was repairing a generator near the back of his workshop. He didn't know death was already falling from the sky. The night had been quiet. Too quiet. Leah and Nova were asleep in the other room, curled under a single blanket. Ethan looked at them and smiled softly before returning to his tools. Then the ground trembled. A low rumble shook the air. Outside, A bright red flash burned across the horizon. Ethan ran to the window, his eyes widening. A ship was landing near the old mining fields, engines roaring like thunder. His communicator beeped once. Unauthorized landing detected. Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew who it was. The Guild, he whispered. They had found him. He turned off the lights and grabbed the emergency power switch, cutting all visible energy signals. Leah, Nova, wake up. Leah rubbed her eyes, confused. What's happening, Dad? Someone's coming, he said quietly. He picked up Nova, who was still half asleep, his glowing chest faint under the blanket. Don't make a sound, all right? They hid in the lower tunnel, an old maintenance shaft under the floor. Ethan sealed the hatch and waited. Above them, the sound of footsteps echoed through the house, heavy and slow. Then came the voice, deep, metallic, and calm. Ethan Cole, it said, you have something that belongs to the Guild. Ethan's breath stopped. He knew that voice wasn't a patrol drone. It was human, but not fully human. Upstairs, Core scanned the room with red lasers from his cybernetic eyes. His sensors detected faint traces of oxygen shifts, heat signatures. He smiled coldly. They're here, he muttered. He kicked open a door. The house was dark, quiet. A broken scanner lay on the table, and beside it, a small drawing, a child's drawing, 2 humans and 1 blue-skinned boy holding hands under a sun. Core paused for a second, his metal jaw twitching. Something flickered in his chest, something he didn't understand, but he shook it off, turning toward the floor. He aimed his weapon and fired. A plasma bolt tore through the boards. Sparks flew. Below, Ethan flinched as a bolt of heat missed his shoulder by inches. Leah gasped. Ethan grabbed her hand and whispered, "Run!" They crawled through the narrow tunnel, dust falling from above. Core followed the heat trail, moving like a predator. He could sense them beneath the floor, but when he scanned again, the signal from Nova's lungs spiked. Core froze, staring at his monitor. The readings weren't normal. They were alive, changing, evolving. "What are you?" he whispered. In the tunnel, Nova clutched his chest, pain shooting through his body. The light from his lungs pulsed brighter, faster. "Dad, it hurts," he gasped. Ethan lifted him, trying to calm him. "I know, son. Hold on." But the light kept growing until the walls began to glow faintly blue. Core, standing above, felt the heat through the floor. He stepped back, shocked. "Impossible," he muttered. He remembered the Guild's files. The experiment wasn't just made to survive different planets. It was designed to react. Nova wasn't only alive, he was waking up. Ethan reached the end of the tunnel and pushed open the hatch to the canyon behind the house. Cold wind hit his face. He looked back. The light from inside the tunnel flashed once more, then exploded outward. Core shielded himself as a shockwave threw him across the room. The walls cracked, the floor burned, and the tunnel collapsed. When the light faded, the house was half destroyed. Core rose slowly, scanning again. No signal. They were gone. Far away, Ethan carried Nova across the rocks, Leah following close behind. The boy's glow faded as he lost consciousness. Ethan held him tight, whispering, "Stay with me, Nova, please." They reached an old mining station and hid inside the control bunker. Ethan sealed the doors and turned on a low emergency light. Leah began to cry quietly. "Dad, that man, he wasn't human, was he?" Ethan shook his head. "No, honey, not anymore." He looked down at Nova. His heart ached as he whispered, "They'll never stop, will they?" Nova didn't answer. He was still, his breathing shallow. Ethan pressed his hand over the glowing chest and closed his eyes. "If I have to rebuild you piece by piece, I will," he whispered. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins. Core stood in the distance, watching through his visor. He could have fired. He had a clear shot, but he didn't. Something inside him hesitated. He lowered his weapon and murmured, "You have no idea what you're protecting, human." As he turned back toward his ship, his red eyes dimmed. The hunt wasn't over. It was only beginning. The old mining bunker was cold and silent. Dust floated in the thin air, and broken machines lay scattered like bones of a forgotten age. Ethan sat on the floor beside Nova. The boy's breathing was shallow, each inhale glowing faintly blue through his chest. Leah sat close, holding his hand, tears shining in her small eyes. "Dad, is he going to die?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He pressed a scanner against Nova's ribs, watching the readings flicker on the cracked screen. Energy levels low, mechanical core unstable. He had to do something soon, or the boy's system would collapse. But before he could move, the bunker door hissed. A voice came from the shadows. "Don't bother, human. You can't fix what you don't understand." Ethan spun around, aiming his plasma tool. A tall figure stepped into the dim light. Core, the hunter. Half his face was metal, the other half human flesh, scarred and tired. His red eyes glowed faintly, but his weapon hung at his side. He wasn't attacking, not yet. Leah gasped, clutching Nova tighter. Ethan stood between them. "Stay back," he warned. Core tilted his head. "If I wanted you dead, you would be." Ethan didn't move. "What do you want?" "The truth," Core said quietly. "You think you're saving that boy, but you don't even know what he is." Ethan's grip tightened. "He's a child," he said. "That's all I need to know." Core shook his head, metal plates shifting on his jaw. "He's not just a child. He's a prototype, the first of his kind." Ethan frowned. Core took a step closer, lowering his weapon. "Years ago, the Guild began secret experiments," he said, his voice calm and cold. "They wanted soldiers who could survive any planet, even worlds where humans or aliens couldn't breathe." He pointed at Nova. "He's the result. Artificial lungs that convert any air into oxygen, any gas into life. He can breathe in poison, in fire, even in space for a short time." Leah's eyes widened. "So he's special?" Core looked at her with something almost like pity. "Special, yes. But to the Guild, he's just a tool. They plan to create armies like him, hybrids who can live anywhere, conquer anything." Ethan felt sick. He looked at Nova, fragile, innocent, sleeping quietly, and anger filled his chest. "You're saying they built him to take planets?" Core nodded slowly. "And when the scientists saw the boy starting to think, starting to feel, they panicked. He wasn't supposed to have emotions. They tried to shut him down." Leah gasped, covering her mouth. Ethan clenched his fists. "They were going to kill him." Core's eyes glowed dimly. "That's why he ran. The boy escaped during a transport raid. They called it a containment breach. I was sent to find him, alive or dead." Ethan took a deep breath. "And now?" he asked. "You're here to finish the job?" Core's expression didn't change. "I was," he said, "until I saw your house. Until I saw the drawing." Ethan blinked, confused. Core continued. "That picture, 2 humans and a small blue child. He drew it, didn't he?" Ethan nodded slowly. Core looked away for a moment, as if something inside him was breaking. "When I saw it, I remembered something," he said softly. "A face. A child I once had before I became this." For the first time, Core's voice sounded almost human. He looked at Nova, then at Ethan. "I don't care about the Guild anymore," he said, "but you have to understand it. They won't stop. They'll burn every colony to get him back. He's not just property. He's a key to their new empire." Ethan took a step closer. "Then help me," he said. "Help me protect him." Core hesitated, red lights flickering in his eyes. "I can't protect you," he said, "but I can buy you time." He tossed Ethan a small data chip. "This has everything the Guild knows about Nova, his design, his weakness, and the way to disable his tracker permanently." Ethan caught it, staring. "Why are you helping me?" Core gave a small, bitter smile. "Because I once believed the Guild could make life better. Now I see all they make is pain." He turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. "If the boy wakes up," he said, "tell him he wasn't made wrong. He was made better than all of us." Then he was gone, swallowed by the shadows outside. Ethan stood there for a long moment, the data chip warm in his hand. He looked down at Nova, who stirred slightly, his eyes opening halfway. "Dad," he whispered weakly. Ethan knelt beside him, tears filling his eyes. "Yes, son?" Nova smiled faintly. "It's not dark anymore." Ethan swallowed hard, whispering, "No, son, it isn't." He pressed the chip into his scanner, watching new data fill the screen. The truth of Nova's creation, the danger ahead. Now he understood what he was protecting. Not just a child, but a miracle the universe wasn't ready for. Outside, the storm clouds gathered again. Far in orbit, Guild ships began to move, their engines glowing red like angry stars. The war for one boy, one breath of life, had just begun. The wind howled through the broken vents of the mining bunker. Morning light crept through the cracks, turning the dust golden. Ethan sat beside Nova's bed, a metal bench covered with old blankets. The boy was breathing weakly, his blue glow flickering like a dying flame. Ethan hadn't slept. All night he studied the data chip Core had given him. Inside were diagrams, layers of tissue, metal, and light. Nova's lungs weren't just machines, they were something more, something alive. A fusion of alien biotech and human engineering, built to adapt, evolve, and survive. But there was a problem. The files showed that the artificial lungs were failing. If the hybrid tissue collapsed, Nova wouldn't survive another cycle. The only solution was to rebuild them, replace the alien parts with fully human ones. Ethan stared at the screen, his hands trembling. If he did that, Nova would lose his alien identity, the last thing that made him who he was. But if he didn't, the boy would die. It was a choice no father should ever have to make. He turned off the scanner and looked at Leah sleeping on the floor beside Nova. She had stayed up for hours, holding his hand, whispering stories. Even in her dreams, she didn't let go. Ethan smiled sadly, whispering, "You both deserve better than this." He stood, gathered his tools, and began his work. He disconnected the old oxygen pumps and placed Nova on a breathing line. Each sound of the machine echoed like a heartbeat in the small bunker. "Stay with me, son," Ethan whispered. "Don't give up now." For hours he worked, soldering wires, replacing circuits, stabilizing energy flows. He had done hundreds of repairs in his life, but never like this. This time, every mistake could cost a life. When he opened the chamber around Nova's chest, a soft blue mist escaped. Inside, the glowing lungs pulsed like stars trapped under glass. Ethan froze. It was beautiful and terrifying. He began replacing the broken tissues with human-made filters. As he worked, he whispered to himself, "You are not a machine. You're my boy, and you're going to live." Hours passed, and the glow began to dim. The process was almost complete. Leah woke up, rubbing her eyes. "Dad?" she asked softly. "Is he okay?" Ethan didn't look up. "He will be," he said. "I promise." Then the warning alarm flashed red. Ethan's heart dropped. The computer showed an outgoing signal. The rebuild had triggered the guild's emergency link, broadcasting their location. "No, no, no," he muttered. He slammed his hand on the console, but it was too late. In orbit, guild scanners had already locked on. Outside, the sky darkened. 3 guild ships entered the atmosphere, glowing like falling comets. Ethan stared at the radar, his heart pounding. "They're coming," he whispered. He looked back at Nova. The boy's new lungs flickered softly, alive but fragile. Leah grabbed her father's sleeve. "Dad, we have to go." He shook his head. "If we move him now, he'll die. I need 5 more minutes." The engines above roared louder, shaking the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Leah cried out, "They're landing!" Ethan clenched his teeth and worked faster, his hands trembling. He tightened the last seal, reconnected the core, and hit activate. The machine beeped. Nova's chest rose once. Then again, steady and strong. He opened his eyes, the gold brighter than ever before. "Dad," he whispered. "It's warm." Ethan smiled through tears. "That's your new lungs, son. You're alive." Then the bunker shook violently. A blast hit the side wall, flames and smoke rushing in. Leah screamed. Ethan grabbed her and Nova, shielding them as the ceiling cracked. Through the smoke, a shadow appeared, tall, armored, with the guild insignia glowing red. A voice echoed through the chaos. "Ethan Cole, surrender the prototype or face termination." Ethan turned, holding Nova close. "You'll have to go through me first," he said, his voice shaking but firm. He set Nova down gently and whispered, "No matter what happens, protect your sister." Nova looked at him, confused. "Dad, no." Ethan smiled softly. Sometimes a father's job isn't to fight, it's to buy time. He grabbed his EMP scrambler, the one he had built weeks ago, and ran toward the doorway. The guild soldiers opened fire, plasma bolts lighting the air. Ethan dove behind a console, returning a few blasts with his repair gun. It wasn't a weapon, but it was all he had. He pressed the scrambler's trigger, and the device hummed, sending out a powerful pulse. The lights in the bunker flickered. Every guild soldier froze for a second, their suits short-circuiting. "Now!" Ethan shouted. Leah grabbed Nova's hand, pulling him toward the back exit. They ran through the smoke as Ethan covered them, shouting, "Go! Don't look back!" The scrambler sparked one last time, overloading. The explosion shook the valley, lighting up the night. When the dust settled, the bunker was gone. The guild soldiers were scattered, and Kor's ship hovered in the distance, watching. Leah and Nova hid behind the rocks, eyes wide. "Dad!" Leah cried, but there was no answer, only silence. Nova clenched his fists, his lungs glowing brighter with each breath. Something inside him shifted. A quiet fire burning deep within. He looked up at the dark sky, tears streaming down his glowing cheeks. "Dad," he whispered, "I'll protect her now." And for the first time, the stars above seemed to pulse with his breath, as if the universe itself had begun to listen. Smoke covered the valley where the bunker once stood. The ground was cracked, the air thick with dust and fire. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the scent of metal and loss. Under the shattered rocks, Leah coughed weakly, pulling herself free. Her small hands shook as she called out, "Dad, Dad, where are you?" Only silence answered. Beside her, Nova pushed aside the debris, his golden eyes glowing through the smoke. He looked at the ruins, at the place where Ethan Cole had stood, and felt a pain he couldn't name. For the first time since he'd escaped the guild, he felt alone, truly alone. Leah stumbled toward him, tears streaking down her face. "He said not to look back," she whispered. "But I can't. I can't leave him." Nova reached out, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. "Your dad. He saved us," he said softly, his voice shaking. She looked at him, eyes wide. "Then we'll save him too." Nova nodded slowly. Something inside him stirred, a hum, deep and powerful. His lungs began to glow again, brighter than before. Every breath he took sent ripples of light through the air. The boy didn't understand it, but his body did. The change Ethan had made, the human upgrade, had unlocked something greater. He stood tall, his small frame outlined by blue light. Leah gasped, "Nova, you're glowing." He looked at his hands, his veins shining like tiny stars. "I can feel him," Nova whispered. "I can feel Dad. He's still here." Above the clouds, the guild ship circled. Engines burned red, scanning the surface for signs of life. Inside the command ship, officers shouted reports. "The prototype survived the blast," one said. "His signal is unstable, but active," another replied. The commander's voice was cold. "Then finish it. Bring me the boy." Dozens of drones shot down from the sky, metal wings slicing through the wind, their sensors flashing crimson. Nova saw them coming. He turned to Leah. "Hide behind the rocks. Don't move." "But what about you?" she cried. He smiled softly. "Dad said to protect you. That's what I'll do." Leah grabbed his hand, refusing to let go. "I'm not leaving you," she said firmly. "We're family." Nova looked at her, a human girl, stubborn, brave, and full of love, and for the first time, he understood what that word meant. Family wasn't built by blood or design. It was built by choice, by hearts that refused to let go. He squeezed her hand once, then stepped forward. The drones descended, their red lights locked on him. Nova took a deep breath. The glow inside him grew brighter, spreading from his chest to his skin. He raised his head to the sky and whispered, "I'm not your property. I'm alive." The air around him shimmered. Blue mist swirled upward, forming a spiral of light. When the first drone fired, the blast bent in midair, curving around him like a wave around a rock. The others followed, shooting again and again, but each shot twisted, dissolved, and vanished into glowing air. Leah watched in awe, her eyes wide. Nova's body lifted slightly from the ground, his lungs pulsing like twin suns. The light reached the clouds, turning night into morning. The guild ships staggered as their systems began to fail. Engines overheated, screens went black. Inside the command ship, the officer shouted, "He's emitting a plasma field. It's rewriting the atmosphere." The commander stared in horror. What kind of machine can do that? The answer came in silence, the kind that wasn't a machine at all. Down below, Nova's light grew stronger. He could feel Ethan. A faint warmth, a memory of a voice saying, "You're my son now." Tears rolled down his cheeks as he whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Then, in one final burst, he exhaled. A wave of blue energy spread across the valley. The guild ships in the sky froze mid-flight, their metal shells glowing before melting into light. For a moment, it looked like stars falling from heaven. The wind carried them high, particles of light dancing across the clouds. When the glow faded, the valley was quiet again. The sky was clear, and the stars above seemed brighter than ever before. Leah ran to Nova, hugging him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us." Nova hugged her back, trembling. "No," he said softly. "We saved each other." They stood there for a long time, watching the sunrise. The first rays of light touched the ruins where Ethan once stood. A piece of his old jacket fluttered in the breeze. Leah picked it up gently, pressing it to her chest. "He's still with us," she said. Nova smiled. "He always will be." Years later, stories spread across the colonies. Stories of a human who defied the guild to protect a child not of his blood, of a boy who breathed life into dead worlds. They called him Nova the Starborn, the boy who could breathe stars. And whenever people asked him who taught him to be brave, he always smiled and said, "A human named Ethan Cole, the man who showed me what family means." The stars above shimmered, and somewhere among them, a father's voice seemed to whisper through the wind, "Breathe, son. The universe is yours now."